Good evening, everyone. The meeting of the board is now called to order at 7 p.m. Before we begin tonight's meeting, I'm required to make the following announcement. In the unlikely event fire alarms go off, please exit the building quickly and quietly. Evacuate the building using the phone. Will anyone need assistance in case of such an event? Once outside, please move away from the building and keep fire lanes and entrances clear. Do not re-enter the building until you are told to do so. Please turn off all electronic devices during the meeting. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Right into our discussion items. And first up, we have Paula Eastman.
Good evening, and thank you for being here at JT Law. I appreciate you spending the time with us here at our wonderful school. I distributed to each of you an outline of some bullet points for talking this evening. I know we would normally have a presentation. I'm one of those people that like to share something new that's happening, but due to the circumstances of COVID-19, I wanted to give you some updates related to report cards, our remote learners, and so forth. So first off, I'd like to again say thank you for coming tonight. And item number one, you might be interested to know that our first trimester is coming to a close, and that's going to be next Friday. With that being said, I wanted to share with you what we're going to be looking at for grading. One of the first things we need to take into consideration is the quality over the quantity because of how we see our kids. We have students that are in 2 separate hybrid groups, as well as full remote, as well as we have a group that comes 4 days a week. So what we're looking at is the quality of the work compared to just quantity. Next, we need to take into consideration empathy and understanding, as we do not know what home situations are and what's occurring with each family. So taking those into consideration, we still want the kids to produce work, we're still communicating, we're still adjusting some mindsets from families who may have thought that what's occurring now is the same thing that occurred in the springtime, but it isn't. There's such much more accountability. Third down, it says we're using NA a lot more, but not actual. There are, at the elementary level, Mondays are always Mondays, but then we rotate to an A through E schedule. Until we had the Indigenous People Day, we did not switch that day by skipping it. So on every day, a special area teacher might have missed seeing the class if they were assigned an E day. So with that now, those teachers, if they didn't have enough time to really grade those kids, they're able to use NA. And that's the same thing that we would be doing in the classroom for some of the standards. And the reason for that being is we're not rushing through, we're making sure that we're still educating our students appropriately, but because of only seeing them 2 days, we are going slower with the curriculum in some respects. The next one down, prioritizing lists of what needs to be submitted. Our kindergarten to grade 2 students, just because of the level of the content, have been more successful with getting things done on their own at home and returning it. Some of our struggles have been for our 3rd graders through 5th graders, oftentimes because there might not be the parent support, the parent might be struggling with the content that they're asked to do, or they also might have children that are a little bit more defined. So with that being said, one of my teachers came to me and they did a list for each of the children in their classroom and said, these are the items that they're missing. I said, okay, and a couple of them, there are quite a few pieces there. So I said to the teacher, taking a look at this, what do they have to turn in? What is it that for you to know that they're able to complete what you're asking them to do, highlight those. I said, still share the whole list with their families, but prioritize what it is that you need from the children. And he was very relieved to see that, okay, that's okay to do. I'm like, absolutely. But then again, what we're doing is we're showing that, yeah, we still want you to be responsible for everything, but we also have to prioritize because we really don't know what's happening in everyone's home. And then finally, we're trying to use using the lens of big picture. So what is it that we want our kids to accomplish? We still want them to be socially and emotionally. Some kids are really fragile right now. There's a lot going on. So we want to make sure that they're enjoying school, that they're liking school, that they're happy with school, and that we're not sending kids home into a ruckus of a family because of the stress and anxiety that might be going on. As we've heard many people say, I'm not a teacher. And so we have to take that into consideration. So our grading for this time is going to be a bit different. We're still holding people accountable. We still want our students to be progressing, but at the same time, we want to take the situation that we all are in into consideration. So that was number one. Number two, our full remote learners. Here at JT Law, at the start of the school year, we had 76 of our 325 students full remote. I shared with you a breakdown. Of those 76 students, that was 23% of our full enrollment for here at the building. I shared with you the grade level and the number of students per grade level. One of the biggest impacts to our remote learning situation was the number of Native American students that we have here at JT Law that opted for full remote. Out of 76, that was 49 kids. 49 of our Native American students opted for the full remote. And that's 64% of our full remote kids were our Native American students. When you might be wondering why so high? Well, in some instances, they have multi-generational families that are in their home. So as far as the concern for that, for the family. Also, there's concern because of having such a small, cohesive community where kids would be attending Silver Creek, Wanda, and us. That commingling of what could be brought into the homes was also a concern. And then also what was happening across the United States as well as around the world that was happening on Indigenous people's land as far as home groups. Because as we know, illness has been something that has been very detrimental to those cultures. So if you look down for the second trimester, I'm excited to share with you that we have 34 students as of today are returning. And there's the breakdown. So that's 45% of our kids are coming back. 23 of those students are Native American students. So we're very excited to have that also, because to me, it seems that it's expressing a trust in us about what we're doing here as far as keeping their kids safe. And that also goes to our non-Native students as well. But because of that large population concern, we do have one new remote student that was a third grader, and they happen to be a non-Native student, but I wanted to put that in there. So if you take a look, as we begin the second trimester on November 16th, at this time, it looks like we will have 43 full remote students. And that drops down to 13% of our school population. And that's really quite impressive considering that went from 23 down to 13. So hopefully, as we move through, I do have some concerns as the weather shifts and we start closing windows and doors that we might have an influx of some cases. We did have one here and we handled it very well, and I appreciate the guidance I was given. But just to show you where we stand. Because of that high population of concern, and this had started in the spring, one of the things that we were able to do, and I appreciate Melissa very much because of being one of the facilitators of this partnership with the Seneca Nation Education Department, we have been having tri-district meetings with Silver Creek, Wanda, Lakeshore, and the Seneca Nation Education Department bi-weekly. Now, that started over the summer. We were having them pretty close. Yeah, we were having them every week, then pushing it bi-weekly. And it was something that really was so helpful to each of our districts because we were able to brainstorm collectively of what are you doing, and to seeing what best practices would be and how we were able to reach families, seeing some of those shared concerns. We kept that, the meetings going through, and now we're meeting bi-weekly during the 2021 school year with Melissa facilitating. We were able to assist with getting technology devices into the hands of the students, and we were also able to stress to the Seneca Nation Department of Education and have the support from them to provide devices. So with us not being able to do the hotspots because of the budgetary demands that causes, the Seneca Nation actually were able to pick up some of those and support it. They're also supporting some of the families that, because we're able to give one device to a household, in some households that had multiple children, they were able to give a supplement device, because one from us and one from the nation, they're already at 2. So that has been very helpful. They were able to assist with providing places for Wi-Fi, be it the ECLC, the CCC, the library, and identifying other places on the nation. That was something that was really important, and also to share what we still have in school. Please remember that we have a number of Native students who don't live on territory that live right here around us in the immediate vicinity. So we are sharing where they were able to locate in our parking lots for Wi-Fi access and so forth. So it was really important for us to network and be able to share that accurate information. Provide space again for those remote days. Now this is critical for us, and it just happened. We couldn't have planned it better. Mondays are the day that Lake Shore is not in session with any students. Silver Creek is on Wednesdays when they don't have any students, and Fridays happen to be when Gowanda didn't have any students. And it wasn't planned, it was just worked out that way. So it might seem like a small thing, you say, why is that a big deal? Well, we were able to help facilitate a program to be held at the ECLC. There is 2 sessions from 8 to 11 a.m. and then from noon until 3. It's also on there, it's on the back. So that time is on there. So with transportation, so students who live on territory are being transported by Seneca Nation transportation. Students who live off territory, we have 9 students, are being transported by Lake Shore buses to the ECLC. And what works out very nice is we actually have a student who's attending the morning session and he comes back for both in the afternoon. So we were able to make that happen for them. This is only for our hybrid students at this time. We have 3 classrooms per session that are designated, 1 for elementary, 1 for middle school, 1 for high school. So we have those set up. Instrumental in providing a successful program. That is thank you to Stacy Prepara, our Title VI coordinator, our Title VI liaison, Lindsay, John, and Nancy Clemens are attending on Monday. And also our JOM teachers are helping to facilitate instruction, supporting learning at that point in time. So we have Will Reynolds with elementary, Alyssa Ostrowski, and Bill, I don't remember how to pronounce her married name now. Schohauer. My sister, who's the German teacher, is very excited as well. But what's nice about that is their kids are bringing devices, and if kids don't have a device, they actually have some right there at the ECLC for them to use. And what was great the first day, because we only had this going for 3 weeks. For example, Will Reynolds, who is the elementary JOM teacher, there was a question, he was able to contact the teacher here at Wall on that Monday and immediately answer the question for the child about a login or what work they had done. So just being able to do that has been huge help to us. Now, we currently have 20 elementary students involved, 19 middle school and 13 high school students. They were invited based on their lack of participation in school this past spring, lack of possible support at home, need of intervention, and other criteria that were used to invite those kids. So they were specifically targeted. The program started on October 9th, and then you can see the attendance for the week. I wanted to share that with you. I have been in contact with Chris Cook at the high school and Eric Riddell at the middle school and about their students. As you see, our high school numbers are very low. What's been great with Stacy, Lindsay, and Nancy is they've been calling kids directly. And even Lindsay was sharing how she was calling some kids on Sunday night going, make sure you're up for the bus. So to remind them. But poor attendance will actually lead to removement from that program, and then we'll be filling those slots. Because we want to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck, and if there's a child who's waiting, we want to make sure. You may be wondering, well, how come this isn't open to the remote students? At this time, a lot of the remote kids, There's a reason why those parents didn't want those families to be mingling, and so they're still mingling at the other site. So at this point in time, this is where we are. And then, I know I'll be under like 15 minutes, I can't believe it. But lastly, I just wanted to say thank you, and I share it with my faculty and staff here, and I share it with my students and my families, but I want to make sure that I get it out to the public. I want to thank everyone, our students, our families, our faculty and staff, our clerical, our nurses, our custodians, our cafeteria support, be it either in the kitchen or the monitors, our bus drivers, our administration, our board of education, and our school community for their support and flexibility during this crazy time. We've never done this before, and we're doing the best we can, and we're learning every day. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been involved. I've been seeing and reading some I shared with Melissa today, I had a parent who said that they were actually looking to move out of the district, and then because of the way school handled everything, there's no way they're going to leave. So thank you for that. So thank you for your time this evening. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them or divert them to someone else.
I just want to say, Paula, this is absolutely incredibly impressive, being so far ahead of the game and on top of every little detail. It's just impressive. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. They're my kids too. Like one of the parents said the other day, you know, it's so hard sometimes I can't fall asleep worrying about my child. I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. So here they are. They're my kids and my family.
Paula, if you had one wish, what would it be? And you can't say for COVID to
If I had one wish, I wanted to
what was one thing that would make it easier for you, or one tool you wish you had in your toolkit, or one circumstance that would really help?
I don't know because it's so situationally based as far as going through. I guess it would be my first thing is the social emotional aspect of things, because if you don't feel safe, you don't feel loved, you're not going to learn. So I guess it would be to make sure that I have the resources for the families. That would be my first. I had said before, to my family, my kids, and other people who would listen, that if you really wanted to improve an election, if I was ever going to run for president, my slogan would be take care of your kids. You know, because if you take care of your kids, all of those problems are going to work themselves out. You know, it's the resource that we have in our children is the greatest thing that we have. And I mean, you know, love them, feed them, take care of them. So I say that's the same thing now. We have a lot of people who signed up with the remote, and we really, I don't want to say just try to discourage them, but we did, just because we knew what the expectations were going to be. And then all of a sudden people are saying like, whoa, you know, so it's just the education part of it that, you know, people are struggling in so many other ways, that my biggest wish right now is that families would have a baby. Because if they were able to do that, and if it was their head and their heart and everything worked together, it would be a lot easier. You know.
It's a credit to the district and to the work that you guys have done, that we have a few years under our belt with social emotional learning, with trauma informed instruction, because I would imagine that the needs in our students are higher now than ever, and the need for our faculty to have those schools is higher than ever. So I know I'm really grateful that we really spent years laying the groundwork.
I'm currently leading, I have 12 people involved in this, in focus, building social and emotional intelligence on a daily basis. And so we're doing that. It's not necessarily really a book site, more of a pilot in a way. So the teachers that I have worked with, I want to each grade level, except for kindergarten. I have an AIS person, our school psychologist, Debbie Anderson's doing it. And so we're meeting monthly, and they're actually teaching these lessons. And they're very short, specific lessons. I mean, if they take 10 minutes, that's a lot. But it's broken into those things, and it's about building those skills and those foundational things about, you know, how to do it. And the funny part about it is the teachers have to journal, because there's a teacher component there about self-help. And so I'm doing it too. I'm going through and if you've ever started a journal, except I'm not gonna look at Carlos, because Carlos is probably good at it. But I want to write almost like somebody's gonna read it and not really tell how about you're really feeling. So one of the pieces that were very difficult for me was because stop and think of your body right now. How is your body connected? And I was sitting there going, oh boy, you know, I don't sit still very well. So that was something that was really hard, but we started teaching our kids those things early. And then another one of the topics that were in there was about risk taking. Well, risk taking, I got. I'm all over that. So then a couple of the teachers that were in there were like, you know, this is a risk for me. Participating in this is a risk. And so we've been meeting once a month with that, and we're doing that via Google Meet. And so it's nice to see it. So there's a K2 book and then a 3-5 book. And so I hope that it's the people who've been doing the other book study with me that so we're kind of building that capacity within them. So.
If you've got any kind of primary reasons or input from families whose children have been unpromoted, what has made them comfortable enough to send that?
Some, I think, is that just they're resigned to the fact that this one is going to be a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Also, too, how we were able to handle it. Being able to sit on the sideline a little bit and watch and listen and learn. I think that has helped people come back as far as going through to see the safety precautions of how things are going to be handled, what it was going to look like, what it was going to sound like. And I also feel that some people thought that as soon as the kids went to school, there was going to be this big, huge spike. And when that didn't happen, their anxiety level went down a bit too. So I think it's a bunch of things that are going through. For example, I have one family, their youngest is a student at Highland, and he had to have open heart surgery. Well, the two of the siblings were here, so obviously their doctor said, look, we really can't during this time as far as going through. So now he's home, he's doing really well, so the siblings are able to come back to school, even though he's not ready to go back to school yet. They can because of his immunity level has increased. So that's been some of that. Also with the reservation, with territory, you'll see that they have lost some numbers. There's been recent deaths that have been there, but also there was a 3 deaths over the late summer. That was a mother, daughter, and then a sister. So, and that sparked people's concern as far as going through. And with a small community, I mean, I grew up in South Buffalo. My last name is Smith. Guess what? We were related to a lot of people. And so on a small territory that we have, those deaths impact families greatly.
Oh, I have just a quick question on the beginning of the 49 Native Americans. Did we ever figure out or get a sense of how they were doing with Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I was spoken with Trudy Jackson, who was the education department. They're actually currently moving forward. I'm on some of the people where President Armbrust, when he will speak, he shared that they are actually starting to move towards it, but they said it could take between 6 and 9 months to get that done.
So did we get a sense of on nation, any strategies, or were they using hotspots or?
Well, they were doing the same thing, Billy, like we were, a lot of the hotspots that they had in the spring were from us. Yeah. And there was some dead zones, just like we have in Farnham, as far as going through, so that there was like one area, the trees, of course, I had a bunch of families that are on there that it didn't make a difference if they had a hotspot or not, it wasn't going to work because it was a dead zone. But that's why we're saying that they increased accessibility to the ECLC, the CCC, the library, all those things to generate that more Wi-Fi accessibility out.
That's great.
Paula, I know we talked briefly earlier that you said for the most part, things have been pretty good with our remote parents dropping off work, picking things up. Do we have any that we just haven't heard anything from that we're struggling with?
Yes, in the district, yes. Here at my building, no. We've been kind of like a little badger, but I would have to give great credit to Nancy Clemens for the amount of work that she does as far as to contact people. My teachers have been reaching out. I've been texting people, all those type of things. They have been turning in some things late, and so then it's funny that you asked that question because We had a Google Meet with a mom yesterday, and on the invite, it had more than, it was myself, the teacher, and some related service providers that were on there. And of course, mom kind of, whoa, well, she should have been aware that we were all on there. And then at the end, she sort of felt a little bit, my daughter's missing things, and I did all these different things, and the mom took the initiative to color code all of her things, which was fabulous, the days of the week, all those things. Mom happens to be going to school too. And so she wasn't picking things up until Friday. We had everything ready Tuesday morning, 9 to 4. And so mom in the meeting said, it ends up being a lot of work for her. She has 2 other children here in the building. She goes, but it ends up being a lot of work for my daughter because I pick up the work late. And she said, so yeah, it does seem like a lot of work. And we've also, so we applauded her for realizing that, appreciating that, and understanding that. And then I will diligently remind people it's not homework, it's classwork. Because we're not sending home homework, we're sending home classwork. That's the work you'd be doing if you're sitting in your chair. So helping to change that mindset of it a little bit too has been, and then I tell the teachers, don't send home busy things. If there's something you can have that prioritized. So, and it has helped. It's not perfect, but today, at the end of the day, I called a grandma back whose child was on remote because of another health issue. And she said, my daughter's getting very concerned because he's falling behind in the colors. And I said, give me your number, I'm gonna call her in the morning. And she's like, when you do that, I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. And we'll go through it, try to alleviate some of that stuff. And so, communication.
Do you think some of it is just parents are working, they're having a hard time getting here, do they not have transportation? What do you think they're struggling with picking up and dropping off?
All of those things. All of those things, some of it could be that some people, it's not their priority at the time, they have other things that are going on. Some, Nicole Phillips was sent an email too, we did a drop off, with some work to see that, oh, here it is, and just a little checkup too. Not that we're gonna do this all the time, but here it is, and you might just fall further behind. So it's communicating that, what do you need? And so we want to make sure that we don't enable, but at the same time support. So it's all of those things done, all of them.
Thank you, Paul.
No problem. I think that's probably the first time I've ever had anybody ask me to use a microphone.
All right, next up, we have Burglar.
So can you hear me okay? Does that- It's on. All right, so we have a folder. I wanted to talk to you a little bit with the school report card. I know this math is, I have a hard time talking through it, I think. So we don't, because of the lack of data for next year, I'm not sure what this will look like, but I wanted to share with you just a different lens of something we were required to do for the school report card each year. We have to do what's called a level 1 addendum. And so the consolidated application where I shared with you one year, the title 1, 2, 3, 4, this goes with that. So I didn't print whole report cards, but rather I wanted to show you some snapshots of what this is. So at the very top of each one, so the yellow one, you'll see that this is AJ Schmidt. And we have a page in their report card that shows that all the subgroups are in good standing. So that middle column at the top, we always look there first to see what's happening as a whole. But then more importantly, in the consolidated application, there's a part where we have to look at the bottom half of it for any ones. One is not good, right? 4s are good, 1s are not good. And they ask us to fill out a form. Everywhere you see a 1, we have to answer the question and we have to create a plan of how we will address that. So the first page, you'll see AJ Schmidt has some 1s in the growth area, which we know is around the 3 through 8 testing, those growth scores. So kids
from point A to point B year to year aren't necessarily growing according to the state formula. And then you'll see some ones in a one in the right-hand column under absenteeism. And then it just tells us what our data is showing in a pretty targeted manner. But for the most part, I really like to look at the threes and fours because there's a lot of good on this page. And so we don't just, for the purpose of the consolidated app, we look at the ones, but we also try to celebrate the sorts of things that we're doing. So you'll see a similar pattern. The next one, the green, is JT1. I take a look at the top, and then I take a look at the bottom. And so you'll see a couple ones there. So in the very, very, very back of your folder, the white document is like a little glossary. So I just cut and paste a few things because this is not my strength to remember all of this. But you'll see that there's under the third thing down is progress, and you'll notice that law has a 1 under progress. And so I just look to see what that means. And it just means that we're looking at the change in the performance index from the current year to the baseline. And all that means is the state sets us some goals. There are end goals that we're to look at for a 5-year goal. There's a long-term goal, and then there's a measure of interim progress, which we call MIPS. And just, we haven't met that MIP, that little touch point that they've asked us to meet. So then we take a look at that and say, what can we do? And then we write a narrative or a small little plan for that. So the next one is Highland. Highland this year did not have to do a level 1 addendum, and you can see why. It's the line sheet. They don't have anyone. And so, I'm sorry, I copied it this way. I forgot to hit landscape. But you'll see that you'll see some 2s, some 3s, and some 4s. So they didn't fill out a level 1 addendum. So the next one is significant because this is why Katie presented to you last board meeting, the purple paper. When you look, it's stapled. So when you look at the second page, it's 2-sided. You will see that we have a thing that's, or a status of good standing, but a potential TSI score for 2021. And that of course has been put off because of COVID. Everything got pushed a year, but we are still a potential TSI, which means targeted score for improvement. There's a TSI and a CSI, and CSI sounds pretty cool, but it's not cool because that's a comprehensive plan, and we don't want to be that either. So Katie presented last time the school improvement that we're doing, the DSIP, and it's for that subgroup that you see listed there. And so we're working really hard to try to target our work there so that we can help kids perform better. And ultimately, we want them to be pay better attention to how they're learning and what they're learning and make sure we're targeted the way we're supposed to be. So on page 3 of that purple, you will see the middle school has some 1s. And you will see, if you look at the subgroups, particularly in the middle, that target that we have, what Katie's working on, is aligned totally with this. You can totally see what happened and why we have that target. So it does all link and connect. And so we are definitely paying very close attention to what's happening there. And then the last one, or not the last one, but the pink one is our high school. So this is just a touch different. So the high school has some similarities, but of course they're different because they don't have the 3-through 8 testing. So we're looking at, there's a second column of graduation rate. And then you'll really, my eyes hone in more towards the right because I'm looking at progress, which means they've set some targets for us that we're missing in a few categories there. And then same with chronic absenteeism, we're missing some key categories there, or some targets there. So we really are going to start pulling some deeper data around that. Again, the data has lagged a year behind, but that's okay. We know what we know about this. We know just anecdotal data, people are saying we have a harder time with attendance at the high school than other levels. This just shows what we thought we knew. Now we know for sure, and we'll have to target in on that. And then the last column is college career and civic readiness. And, it's kind of interesting because look at the threes and fours in that category, and then we've got a one floating in there. And what I always try to remember is every subgroup has a different target. That subgroup, I would suggest, I didn't look today, I looked before, but I'm going by my memory. They have a higher target because their baseline was higher to begin with. So we're trying to meet a higher target there and we're missing it. But so it's important for us to look at that. How are we missing that? And so we'll have to pay close attention to that. And then the next page is I just wanted to show you, this is what the addendum looks like. It's not the whole thing, it's a snippet. And all it is it just shows you that when this is a senior high school one, Chris has to go, did the school receive a level 1 for composite performance achievement level? Her job would be to look at this under composite performance. If anybody got a 1, she'd have to hit yes. She'd click the group, and then we'd write a little plan for that. It's not like a giant plan, but it's a narrative of what we're going to attempt to do this school year, like a summary statement. The next page, which has kind of a blue bar at the top, it's readiness measure. The reason I wanted to show you this is that this is the college career and civic readiness, and I think that's kind of new to us. It's still new to me. I have to think about it every time. We get points for each of those things you see in the middle. So every time a student gets a Regents diploma with advanced designation, we get a weighting of 2, and so on. And it goes down to all the way down to 0, where we don't get any credit if a kid drops out or has a high school equivalency. But there's different things that can happen that we can get points towards. And so I just wanted to show you that because that's what that means. It's just kind of a nice little cheat sheet. On the back of that is just, you can see where it mentions MIPS when you look at that nice colored target and the left-hand side, that measured interim progress. It's just giving you an example of how districts get there, but that's not meaningful to Lakeshore data right now. So that's in a nutshell, a piece of the report card that connects with the consolidated app, that connects with the Title 1, 2, 3, and 4. Questions about that? This is 18-19 data. It's typical that it lags. This is not unique, but next year we don't know what will happen. Any questions? Oh, absolutely. I understand. And honestly, if you asked a question, I can't guarantee that I could get it right the first time, because this language, while I get the big picture, if we had to hone down, I'd have to look things up for you. So I'm okay with that. Even to bring this back into my attention, because I haven't looked at this since pre-COVID, and then I just had to bring it back to my head. So. It is. And there's a lot to be proud of, and then there's a lot that we need to work on for sure. And then with the gap in the year, I'm not sure what we're going to discover over this next year. I do know. Yeah, if you have any questions, just email me, and then or if you want to email everybody, and then I can reply so everybody can see that.
Thanks, Melissa. And next up, we have our technology update, remote learning, general school.
Okay, I'll probably just go up there just today. Okay, can you hear me now? So in terms of technology, we had talked at the last board meeting about the hotspots that we're going to be having, in the district that are on order, and we're hoping to have those in the next few weeks. Where parents that have asked for hotspots, we should be able to give a hotspot to the kids that need them, and they're allowed to keep those hotspots personally. As we said, you have 100 gigs, right? 100 gigs for the year, and if a family wanted to purchase more memory, think it's only like $12 a month, which is relatively inexpensive to have unlimited storage space or have unlimited gigs to be able to use at home. So that's exciting. We do have our Smart Schools Bond Act that was approved, and we put an order in, and we're looking at probably early spring for them to come in because there's so many back ordered around the world for technology. So hopefully that's going to help. We'll have it sooner than later. Um, so we handed out over 330 computers to families that needed them, so that there's at least a computer, a device in a household. We've had 2 returned or 2 not picked up at the middle school, 8 at the high school, a couple at AJ and a couple at Highland. So principals there are making one last ditch effort to see if, maybe they decided, maybe they picked one up and they don't need it anymore. Then we can reallocate that to other families. We're also looking at, what a plan might be if we have to go totally remote for an extended period of time, what we might do with technology to get more technology out during that particular time and then getting it back. In terms of remote learners, Paula talked a little bit about JTY having students come back, and at AJ we have 4 of the 34 students coming back from remote that'll be in the building after, bless you, November 16th. And at Highland, we have 5 out of the 33 that we know of that are going to be coming back. So typically the same kind of reasons why parents want to come back. I think they do feel safe to have their kids in the building, even though it goes into my next topic, positive COVID cases that we've had in the district. We have a really good system working in partnership with the Erie County Department of Health. Either if we get notified or they get notified first. A lot of times the parents have been very good about letting us know if there's something going on in the house. And I've got a direct line to the Department of Health. We text each other. We give them the information. They check their computer to see what they need to do in terms of contact tracing. And in one of the instances at one of our schools, we had to quarantine a Thursday, Friday, White Eagle group, and 1 teacher and 2 teaching assistants. And the teacher and those 2 teaching assistants are able to work at home remotely, working with the kids that are quarantined and other kids that are in there. So they're able to work from home to be able to have contact with those kids so that they're not missing out on anything that they would have had inside the classroom. The other cases that we had, we did not need to worry about contact tracing by order of the Department of Health, because when the individuals were considered contagious, they were already out of school and they weren't in school at that time, and they didn't come back the next week. So again, parents being proactive, they thought something might be wrong, they didn't send them back in when it was their time. So that really helped in terms of a student not being in the building when maybe they shouldn't have been. So all in all, we've had 5 positive cases in the past probably 10 days. One of them was a combination with BOCES. There was a situation with a BOCES teacher who traveled between the Carrier Center and our high school. So out of abundance of caution, we made sure that all of our Lakeshore students did not attend on the Thursday. Worked with the Department of Health because we didn't find out until very late at night. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't have anybody coming to school that maybe should have. And then we were able to narrow it down to a particular classroom at both of the centers. And then we just had to quarantine 17 students out of the 65, I believe, that we had that were Lakeshore students that went to both of those buildings. So that worked out really well. And again, working in partnership with BOCES and the Department of Health really showed that the system that we have in place does work. And we immediately contacted the staff, and we sent out Blackboard Connect to the parents so that they were aware. And Paula had said that she had called the parents herself, and we work on this together. So when a case comes, I leave the office, I go over to the building, and principal and myself sit down, and we go through the process. And we wanted to make sure that in the one case where there was contact tracing that had to happen, that we were able to call the parents first, so that they didn't just get a call out of the blue from the Department of Health and not wondering what was going on. and not, not being scared about what was going on. So we felt that that was the best way to do that so that they heard from us first, and it worked out really well. In terms of meals, just want you to be aware that we have provided 11,208 breakfasts and 11,703 lunches to the community since September through the work of our personal touch group and Debbie Becker and all of her staff. It's been really great that people have been able to take advantage of the meals that we're able to offer the community. Athletics is another big thing that's on everybody's mind. There are 3 meetings that are coming up, one on the 10th with the ECIC Athletic Council, on the 18th with Section 6 Executive Athletic Council, and the 19th ECIC Athletic Director meeting, where all the athletic directors, around the area are meeting together. We still have not received a confirmation from Dr. Zayas or the governor's office in terms of what is actually going to be able to happen in terms of what sports we're going to be able to offer. Can you have wrestling and basketball practice knowing that there might not be a competition, knowing that there might not be a season? So why have them practicing if there's not a season? Well, what if there is a season and then you're not practicing and other schools are practicing? So you have a whole group of kids that haven't practiced and you have playing against a group of kids that have been practicing for a month. So I don't know exactly where they're coming from in terms of which sports are going to be allowed. We're looking at basketball, wrestling, boys swimming, indoor track, and junior varsity and varsity cheerleading. Wrestling and basketball are considered higher risk sports as opposed to maybe swimming and track. So we're not exactly sure which way the state is going to go in terms of what they're going to allow schools to do, especially if this is going to be a time where there could be a spike of cases because we're all coming indoors now and we're having door windows and closed and maybe less air flow inside the classroom. So that's kind of where we're at with technology, with learning and what's going on with COVID cases. The nursing staff has done an outstanding job working with us. Dan and I are the 2 people that put the COVID dashboard numbers up. So they get us that information by 12 o'clock every day, and either Dan or I have to have it into the website by 4 o'clock in order for it to count for the day's count. So when you look at that, it's kind of funny. So if a child is considered positive, they might not have been in school for a week, but when you put it on the website, you still have to count it as on-site because they're kids that would come into the building if they have the opportunity to come into the building. So it's a little bit misleading that people might think that they were actively contagious in the building, but that's what on-site means, that they're a hybrid model. If they're a hybrid model or they're in person at some point for their education. If you have a child that's totally remote and a parent calls us and says, my child tested positive, that would be considered an off-site positive case. And the same for a teacher too, but all of our teachers will be considered on-site because nobody's technically working from home.
On a positive note, Charlie, we haven't had any secondary positive cases due to the virus.
No, we haven't had any secondary, no, and right. So for example, you have a contacts of contacts, right? So one of the things that we looked at when we talked to the Department of Health was the traveling teachers or the special area teachers that go into their classroom. When elementary, they're only in there for about a half hour. So they don't meet the criteria to be considered a contact because they're not in there long enough. And I got to tell you, most of our kids are wearing their masks pretty much all the time anyway on their own. It hasn't even been anything that we've had to ask them to do. And the teachers, I mean, it's really quite fluid. If the teacher's standing in the front and, they have their social distancing, a couple of kids might have their mask down. The teacher moves in to go talk with kids or to get closer. The kids just like automatically put their mask on. It's become, I guess, kind of sadly in a way, but it's become second nature that they just go, oh, even the little ones. And sometimes the little ones are better than the older ones. But I got to tell you, even at the high school, you can walk around the high school you would think that there would have been a problem with the middle school and high school kids, but they have been awesome. I mean, they really have, because I really think, even though they might not like school, they really like school now, and they really want to be, in the building. So, if there is a positive, I guess that is a little bit of a positive that kids like coming to school now. So hopefully, once we get back to normal at some point, that'll continue in terms of their love of coming to school.
And again, so like, when we come in, and we go through the thermal scan,
Mhm.
do we have any issues of students or staff who have had to be put into a separate room?
Not into a special room. I know there was a problem with the one over at the district office, actually, in the back. So we have to get that one recalibrated. But all of our people that are at the stations have the handheld also, so we're using the handheld. So there really hasn't been, that I know of, where they've had to be isolated. There's been a few kids that have had to go to the nurse, and then they talk with them about what's going on. And there have been a couple kids that have been picked up. But after the conversations with the parents, knowing a little bit of the history, there hasn't really had to been like isolation of any particular child, other than like a normal pickup. No, I think that there was one issue at the high school with the student who was just having a difficult time with that. Other than that, there really hasn't been. It's been really running rather smoothly. And I'll knock wood with that. Yes, you have to be symptomatic, but not in quarantine, or you feel like you've got symptoms. So if you feel like you've got symptoms, you can call that number and get a rapid test. But it's really only for educators, kids, and transportation people can also take advantage of that also.
So the parents and our employees are aware of that?
Yeah, yes, there's been email sent to all the staff. And it was also in the letter that we had sent out to all the parents, and it's also on the website. Mhm.
About how things are going.
Mhm.
Certainly we hear a lot of positive things. I think the number one question I get from parents and families is, and I don't know if somebody else gets this question too, why can't we do synchronous learning? Why can't teachers record lessons that our students watch when they're home? And of course, we explain we don't have the tech for that. And, explain the timeline. Can you talk a little bit more about, hopefully, we take that close, being able to do the hybrid model, but if we have to go fully remote, can you talk a little bit more about what that might look like?
Sure. I know that there are teachers that do some of that, where they're doing pre-recorded lessons where it's available. And when it's posted, they just don't make that a mandatory thing that kids have to do, because some kids can't get to it. But when you look at, if we have to go fully remote, we are talking about what synchronous learning might look like in terms of how you would do that. But again, it goes back to making sure you have enough. So there's two things. If you do it synchronous, then you also have to have a backup, because even if everybody has a computer, there might be some place where somebody's watching that child and they can't use the computer, right? So we have to come up with a way where we can kind of do both. And that's what we're talking about now as administrators, and what we're talking about with teachers in terms of what that might look like.
Do you have any sense of, I know we did the technology survey, hand out a lot of notebooks, and of course, students have their own. Do you have any sense of how big the gap is of our students being one-to-one that includes their own devices?
Yeah, we need another 900 devices in the district for everybody to have one in their hand. That's a school computer. And that's what I think we're ordering 950 are in the queue for us to be able to do. I think Jeff Barnes said we have 1,200 on hand right now, and we roughly have about 2,100 students. So we're about,
Presumably, some of those students have their own device.
well, they do.
Don't necessarily know
Right.
what that looks like, right?
Right. Well, the only way we do know is by the surveys that we do and bond. So even if people have their own, if we truly want to be one-to-one, We want to be at a point where we can offer hours also, so that if there's anything wrong with the machine, or if there's anything in particular that needs to run, we know it can run on the machine that we're giving them. Because depending upon what they have, you might have a Mac at home that might not be as compatible with some of the things we're doing that PCs do. So to be truly one-to-one, we would pretend that nobody had a computer, and that how many we would need to be able to get to each one of the students. And it did help a little bit with the BOCE students. They were able to give our BOCE students at the high school a computer from BOCE, and they're able to run our programs and things that we have here too.
I know we were considering Mondays at one
Mhm.
point. I know there was some hesitation because there is so much that we're planning on that day.
Right.
Where are we kind of?
Yeah, right now, we're not looking at bringing kids in on Monday because we're in the situation that we're in, and for us to be able to offer the paper packets, and for us, it's really like an equalizer. There really wouldn't be enough time in the day to be able to get all that stuff ready for parents to be able to pick up. And when we do, if we do have to go remote, totally, we're hoping that we never have to. We're still going to be offering the paper packets also to be able to use in conjunction with technology, so that they can still have that paper in their hand. One of the things that we heard, and Melissa, you can always add things if you like, but parents don't have the ability to print a lot of things at home either. Ink is expensive. They might not have, so we want to be able to have that paper in front of them, because even if they go to grandma's house and she doesn't know, or grandpa, and they don't know how to use the technology, at least they have the paper in their hand, and it's something that they can turn back in. We had just sent out, all the building principals sent out a letter to the families. I did a video that's on the website about our attendance policy and what a temporary remote could look like, or a full remote. So if we ever had to go to a temporary remote situation in a particular building or in the district, what that would look like, what that schedule would look like, and then for grading, kind of reinforcing the fact that it's not homework, it's classwork. Do your best. Hand in your work in order to be marked present when you're not in the building. So if you're a Green Eagle student and you're in school Tuesday, Wednesday, you have work to work on when you go home for Thursday and Friday. And Monday, there's contact points, with teachers that you can, get online or call if you have questions. So you have to be able to turn that work in to get credit for being present remote. So we can mark you present while you're remote. Now, it might not be perfect work that's coming in, but at least if it's being attempted, teachers are going to be able, like Paula said, use their judgment based on what they know about about the kids and what's going on at home to work with each individual family. So, if you have a child that's not bringing any math, but they're bringing in science and social studies, and obviously there might be a math issue, so we might need to get out, on the phone or contact the parents to see exactly what they need for math.
I have probably a naive question. So the Chromebooks,
Mhm.
when they come in, what is the typical turnaround time of when they can go up?
That's not a neat question. It's a good question, because it does take time, right? So Jeff has to go through and do whatever it is that Jeff does to get it ready. But I would say if we got them, I'm just using a date. If we got them March 1st, it would probably be at least 2 weeks before they were all done. But I think that maybe 3 weeks. I'm
I
using
would say whether
a
you
month.
want to, we probably may not even be able to hand them out. Like, it's 950, we have to
Well,
work
especially
on,
not all of them.
Right.
but they have to unbox and then they have to do different things with every one of them. So I just feel like it depends on when they come.
Right.
Because I don't know if we want to hand them out at the end of May and try to get them all back. Those are things I just wondered, that's why I take my head notes. It sounds crazy. I just think about, we did 650 of those. Remember, we ordered for computer-based testing, and they worked 4 weeks straight of building all of them, and a lot of them, but that's not something we kind of out, so I just feel like 950, that's double.
Yeah.
It could take us 2 months for all, so I don't know what that looks like, but, I mean, there's
get people. And in the end, we're not requiring any online work. So I think people worry, I mean, because kids don't have that great access to these touchdowns, right? But we don't require it. You know, just trying to, not perfect.
Right.
I mean, like it could be, talking to Jeff, it could be not unrealistic with delivery dates that delay, plus the setup, unboxing, downloads, it could be September.
Frankly, I thought.
I guess I was correct.
In order, you might be starting.
I mean, I got it, yeah. Hard, just knowing how much before and a good year. So,
It seems like magic to us that don't know technology. Yeah.
That's why, yeah.
Yeah. But, I would think too, knowing Jeff, he would probably have some kind of a rollout system, to get them out, in batches. But again, like Melissa said, depending upon where we're at that particular time, we would probably have a prioritized list of who might need them, quicker, than others in conjunction with the hotspots that people are going to have, that people have to.
Maybe like get an image of one and push it on all of them, but
Right.
again, that estimated stop date is an estimate.
Well, yeah. And we need 900 plugs to plug in there. Any other questions? Okay, great.
All right, so at this time, nobody has anything else, we have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion? All in favor?